It was just I came in and I was just like, how can I help you? Give me some work to do. And I guess I was reasonably good at my output that they liked me enough. Like it always helps to make your ambitions known, but there's a fine line. You don't want to be cocky, but you also want to communicate that you're confident enough in your capabilities that you're ready for the next role. And then once you get the next role, then you take a little bit of time to settle into that. And then you start to make the push for the role after that. To continue to advance, you have to stop being an individual contributor at some point and start to influence other people around you. And that practically means, right, like you start managing people, or maybe you're not even managing people. You're just like indirectly trying to manage others. But you have to be able to show to your leaders and your managers that not only can you lead yourself, but you can also lead others.
You're listening to the East Meets West Pakistani Professional Journeys podcast, released bi-weekly every Sunday at 5 p.m. on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple iTunes. Welcome to the East Meets West Pakistani Professional Journeys podcast. Today we have Ammad Mahmood, who completed his MBA from Cornell. Some of his prior work includes working as NASDAQ, Aon, and Goldman Sachs. He's now the global head corporate insurance at AIG and a board of director member at the American Pakistan Foundation. Pleasure having you on.
It's great to be here. And once again, my apologies this took so long to schedule.
That's completely fine. So I guess we can kick off starting with your experience in Pakistan. So do you mind briefly chatting about your time in Pakistan?
Yeah, I love talking about this very openly because I am born and raised in Rawalpindi, Pakistan. I'm a Pindi boy. I grew up on the streets of, if anybody knows Rawalpindi, there's a town, there's a small part of Pindi called Shabanis or Sayyid. That's where I was born and grew up, and I was there in Pakistan until 13, and that's when I came to the US. I went to school up through 8th grade, very near the Rawalpindi cricket stadium. There was a school there that I went to. We used to take I think it was like a bus or of some sort, and would come pick me up in the morning. We would play cricket in the street in front of my house. We would play badminton there with my friends in my neighborhood. So I have very fond memories of Pakistan. I love going back there and visiting as much as I can.
Speaking of cricket, the Champions Trophy is going on right now, so I'm not sure if you're watching. But yeah, it's unfortunate the first game that they lost against New Zealand, but
yeah. India is coming up, so we'll see what happens. Although I'm managing my expectations. I will be up watching, and then I'll be miserable the whole day, but certainly be rooting for our team.
A true fan, huh?
Me and my dad, we're true fanatics. We've traveled to other parts of the world to watch Pakistan play and win some and lose some. So we love supporting the team as much as possible.
Oh, I think there was a match that happened in the US, right? Not sure if you had a chance to watch that one.
I didn't go, honestly speaking, to the Pakistan-India match because the tickets were out of control. But I did go to a couple of other matches. Like I think they played Canada, if I remember correctly, and it was a complete atmosphere, and they won that game. So that was nice to see. But overall, not a forgettable experience from a World Cup perspective.
Yeah, that makes sense. Any other good memories in Pakistan that you'd like to share?
I love the food. I am a complete foodie. We actually just came back from Pakistan not too long ago, and I tried to hit up as many restaurants as I could. I had my bottle of Tums and Pepto Bismol with me just in case, but it was a tremendous experience. I love the food. I love visiting the northern areas, which I had the pleasure of doing last year when I was around Kadan. And hopefully next time I'm there, we'll go like a little bit further up to Gilgit areas.
Yeah. Did you take the flight or did you drive up north?
So we actually drove from Lahore to near Islamabad. We stayed there for a couple of days, and then from there, we packed ourselves in a big coach type of a situation. And I think it was like 7 hours. It was brutal. That was not a fun part of the journey. So like a couple of kids got like seasick, motion sickness, and it was not fun. But once we got there, then we had a tremendous time. And then I went with somebody to the Jeel Sefal Maluk, which I had never been. So we took the Jeep up on the side of the mountain. That was an experience. And Sefal Maluk was just tremendous. We went up there first thing in the morning, right around sunrise. So we got to view it. It was just pristine. I'd love to go back one day.
Awesome. Yeah. I bet the views were also pretty nice. Even it's pretty dreading drive, but hopefully the views were making up for it.
Yeah.
Not that much.
No, the views were amazing, but it's fascinating how they speak on the pretty well. There's an offshore coming but it's above the road. So that you got to drive through the water, which for us Americans, we're like, wait a minute, that's safe. Or
Oh,
like, what's
okay.
the views were really nice
Yeah,
though.
that's scary.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And I bet it's just like a full like waterfall, right?
Yeah.
Or was it?
It's
Oh,
literally a
oh my
waterfall
God.
and it like comes above the road as opposed to being under the road, which is what we're familiar with and comfortable with here. But, it was certainly an experience, but no, it was tremendous. I would love to go back. And I think if I do go back and, we, like I said, we try and go towards like Gilgit and beyond, like,
Yeah.
we'll probably take the plane to like Skardu or somewhere and then, go.
Awesome. And during your time in Pakistan, were there like any key figures or connections that helped you or propelled you forward in terms of your career personally? Um,
It's, look, like 13, like I said, when I came here, there was an elongated period of time where I actually lived without my dad because my dad had come here earlier. There's this gap in my life that I always think about. I didn't really have that fatherly figure giving guidance and spending time with me. So I relied upon my cousins a lot. I had some older cousins, so you try and find the big brother in the family. I'm the oldest and for my siblings. I tried to look for those opportunities, spent a lot of time with grandpa and grandmother. And my mom, obviously. I love my mom. But I missed having that dad personality as I was going into my preteen years. And Pakistan is all about hanging out with your buddies in the gully and the mohalla around you. And that's how you bypass the time. Yeah.
so you said you moved to the US at age 13. Like, how was that adjustment like
Horrible.
from Pakistan?
Oh, it was
Oh,
horrible. Oh my God. It's like a funny story. Like people who are like, who know me have heard this story. We landed here in May, in the month of May. And in New York, schools end in June. Like in June, you have these things called regents. And then we take the regents, hopefully pass them, then you go on to the next year. And we came in May and my dad was like, I'm going to enroll you into school. Like we're not waiting until September. I'm going to enroll you now. So me and my brothers were like the weird kids who showed up in school in the month of May/June when like it was over. Like everyone was just practicing for finals. Nobody was teaching anything new. And I remember they didn't have seats for us because we went to public schools in
oh,
Queens. So I sat in the teacher's chair for a few days until they had to put me in, had to find an extra chair in the school. So I sat there looking at the kids, looking at me, and they were probably, what is this guy doing here? So that part was not. And then, but once you like settle down and then the new year started, the new school year started, and then it got better after that. But in the beginning, it's tough. Didn't know English that well. There's a whole like language barrier, cultural barrier. I'm sure the clothes that I was rocking weren't really up to par. So that was an experience. Yeah.
and do you have any advice for example, individuals that are moving at a very young age, 10, teens basically, or younger even? Do you have any thoughts on how to progress into society or mold into it?
Yeah. So I'm a strong believer of the melting pot theory that you have to mold yourself into the culture and the environment that you're coming into, but you need help. So my advice, and this is some of the work that like APF or American Pakistan Foundation does as well. Like you got to find like your own like folks from similar backgrounds immediately, whether that means you have family here, whether that means you like find like-minded individuals in school, whether that means you go to the local mosque and form become part of that community. You gotta have a sort of a circle of support around you and friendship, because it is very difficult. It's honestly, it's a huge struggle to like leave everything behind, come here, and on day one, you're like, where am I? And life is very different here versus back in Pakistan, obviously. So surrounding yourself with as many people from that community immediately is going to help. Not saying you have to remain in that community for a long time, but at least that'll buffer the cultural shock to your system.
Okay. And for individuals that are interested, like when they either come here, like how would they be involved in volunteer groups? For example, the American Foundation you just mentioned, how can their involvement be in the group itself in terms of like experience and all that?
Yeah, no, look, I think initially it'll be more like, hey, I'm here. I need help. I need housing help. I need help like meeting some people. And I think what I found that initially you're coming here into schools and universities and colleges, joining your local PSA, local Pakistan Student Association, joining your local MSA. And then some schools have Muslim Student Association. And then some schools even have a blended approach. They just call it like the Asian Student Organization body. I think that helps. because the reality is that you're going to be spending the most amount of time with those folks, right? In school, go to class, leaving class, and you'll be dealing with the same kind of issues and problems. So I would strongly suggest people who are coming here to look into that first. And then once you're settled, then there's organizations such as like American Pakistan Foundation, and we have different kind of programs that you can apply to and to take advantage of what we do. And then there's like people on the other side who are giving back to the community, such as myself. And there's a lot of things that you can do from that aspect as well. But I think initially you gotta find that click.
I guess there's the personal aspect, but then there's the professional/career aspect. So how did you manage to select the current industry that you're in? Or did it change in high school or university? Or was it like you knew this when you were in high school, or did it change?
Oh man, I've gotten very lucky throughout my professional career, and I've had a ton of really good mentors who've carried me along the way. And I really hope and wish that everyone gets the same opportunity or opportunities that I received. But I was in school, graduated in 2007, 2008 from Baruch College here in the city of New York, had a finance degree, and the world was crashing. And it was like the worst time to have a finance degree and be graduating. And I had this like dream in my head that I wanted to be an analyst for Goldman Sachs. I had no idea what I had to do to get there, but it was just like a dream in my head. But so that didn't happen until much later in my career, joining Goldman. But I also just stumbled upon this industry called corporate insurance, because I was looking for a job, applying a lot of different places, and finally somebody from NASDAQ gave me a ring, and they're like, "Hey, would you want to come in and do an interview?" And one thing led to another, and then just once you go in, you learn the industry, you learn what it's all about. You meet people, you meet mentors, personalities, and I haven't looked back since. But it just literally got stumbled into it. And I think a piece of advice for people who are watching, like, you like to think you have it all figured out when you're in college. And a lot of people do, right? I want to be a doctor. I want to be an engineer. And like you go down that path and it's all done and dusted. But there's a lot of us who just stumbled on to different career paths and different professions. And that's okay. I think life is all about figuring out what you like long-term and what you want to do long-term and seeing where that takes you.
Yeah, it would be like, how did you manage to break into NASDAQ? Because, the first roles in like a finance industry, those are usually the hardest. So how did you manage to get exposed? Was it through like your college, or what was it?
The college was helpful to a certain extent. Shout out to Baruch, because it's a great school for anybody who's considering. But it was a very tough atmosphere, and I'm not shy to admit it. Like my first job was at a company called Robert Half. I think they're still around. They do temp placements, right? And I had my resume everywhere. Literally, it was just whoever was willing to take my resume had my resume. And they actually called me on behalf of NASDAQ and said, we have a temp role at NASDAQ. But then the beauty of America and like the opportunities that exist here is once you get in, or once you even get that interview, then it's all up to you. You have to impress the person on the other side during the interview once you start working. So what actually ended up happening was I think I had a 6-month temp placement, but like my second month or third month in, somebody from the team that I was supporting left, and they liked me enough that they were like, "Look, we're not going to interview anybody else. Why don't we just take you from Tim and we make you a permanent employee?" Oh, wow. And that's why I go back to what I said. I've had the benefit of tremendous sort of colleagues and mentors, because that could have gone a completely different way, right? The person said, "I know somebody I want to hire," and that maybe I'm out of that job in 6 months, and we're not talking today.
So the switch from temp to full-time, there's that risk. So how did you manage to get over that? Did you do like any networking in your time as a temporary, or were you showed it through results mostly?
Yeah. So this is like, I take my dad is the most inspirational figure sort of in my world, in my universe. And the only thing that I've learned, the one great thing I've learned from my dad is that you work hard, you keep your head down, and like things will work out for you. He ran a small business, worked like 16, 18 hours a day, and just 7 days a week, no days off. Yeah. Honestly, I don't remember much of like me doing something different. It was just I came in and I was just like, how can I help you? Give me some work to do. And I guess I was reasonably good at my output that they liked me enough, but it was honestly just coming in and doing whatever they wanted me to do. I remember like one of the first 2 things I was doing was so this is not back in the days, there was a website called MapQuest. I don't know if that's still around or not, but I had these like bunch of senior managers who I was supporting, and they would do meetings with potential customers or current customers or clients. I literally would print out the map directions and print it out. I would I would print out like the job, the company profile, the bio of the person. I would hand bind the presentations. I don't know if you know that, just a spiral bound presentation, like you would do it by
Yeah.
hand. So I would be down in the mailroom doing that. So I did anything, whatever they asked me to do, I did, and the rest is history.
So then I guess from you later moved on to Aon and you spent about like 10 years there. So how was that? Like, how did you get that exposure to Aon and how was that experience like?
Yeah, honestly, that was it's like this pure luck pivot my career. So our little group at NASDAQ was acquired by Aon, which is a huge global consulting firm. And I still don't know what the exact reasons were behind that acquisition, but it completely turbocharged my life, right? Because then I went from being part of a very small group to being part of this like global behemoth with a ton of great people, resources, mentors. And I learned a lot during my time at NASDAQ, and then I had to relearn a lot of it again at Aon in the corporate global company that it was. So I had to start over in some aspects. And I think that's really where I went. And I had the opportunity to meet some amazing clients, amazing colleagues, amazing managers and mentors. And if that sort of transition doesn't happen from NASDAQ to Aon, because when I was at Aon, then it's on the map, you're part of this big company, you have big clients, and it opens up other venues and opportunities. So that just happened by itself. I had nothing to obviously do with that transition.
Okay. And moving from each role within Aon, like was there a roadmap that you worked out with your superior that, okay, this is what I want to be as I grow, like in terms of making sure that you're getting those promotions or like, how was that discussion like for you?
Yeah, so I've always been very good at essentially always looking at the people who are like either my peers or people who are in the next level, kind of seeing what they're doing, how they're doing it, and trying to emulate that, copy it, or try and do it in a different way, which might be better, or I may think it's better. When I was a senior broker, I was looking at the AVP on the team. What is he or she doing that I could do or take on? And then once I was an AVP, then I was like, what's the VP doing? How did they make that jump? So I just, all along the way, it was a lot of conversations with my managers. I'm in this role for 2 years. What do I need to do to take the next step? But also looking at my peers and other colleagues and learning. I was a constant learner, like watching people not just do the work, but also watching people, the way they talk, the way they react, pressure situations, the way they handle tough conversations. I was a sponge the whole way. And that really helped me. I was like the quiet little mouse hanging about, just watching and learning every single day of the week. And I think that's
Okay.
probably a big part of my success.
Yeah, it's just like taking control of it, not letting it just happen kind of thing. But
Exactly. Like
actually,
it always helps to make your ambitions known, but there's a fine line. You don't want to be cocky, but you also want to communicate that you're confident enough in your capabilities that you're ready for the next role. And then once you get the next role, then you take a little bit of time to settle into that. And then you start to make the push for the role after that. It just happened organically as I think back about my time. But there were a couple of times where I had to push and prod. Like, why didn't I get it yet? What's going on? What do I need to change? What do I need to learn? And Aon invested in me a lot as well over the years, which helped like through training programs, leadership programs, and other things.
okay. And any advice you would give, for example, an individual that there's some issues that individuals might face where they're in a company, they get so good at the job that a lot of the senior management is, okay, we need to keep him in this role without moving up. So do you have any advice for that situation or?
100%. So there's sort of two roles in a company. There's a role and every company I'm sure has a different term for it. It's called the individual contributor role, which basically means that you can own your desk. Like whatever ends up on your desk, you're going to do an amazing job at it. Like you're going to put out all the fires, you're going to meet all the deadlines. Everything is going to be amazing. And a lot of people do a really good job being that individual contributor up to a certain point. And then they hit that ceiling because to continue to advance, you have to stop being an individual contributor at some point and start to influence other people around you. And that practically means, right, like you start managing people, or maybe you're not even managing people. You're just like indirectly trying to manage others, but you have to be able to show to your leaders and your managers that not only can you lead yourself, but you can also lead others. And that's the second part of the career, right? The first part is all about individual contributions. The second part is all about whatever you have in your head. Like, how do you make like a team of 5, 10, 15, 20, like see the vision and go execute on your behalf? And that's where people struggle. And it's honestly, it's the biggest, sort of most difficult transition. It was for me, and I've seen a lot of other people struggle through it as well.
Okay. And I guess this is more like you pretty much went full circle here, but you went on to work as a VP for Goldman Sachs. So like, I'm assuming you never imagined going through all that experience before reaching that level. So like, how did you get exposed to that position? And what was your thought process that, you finally
But I made
got
it.
into Goldman Sachs actually?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
I like to say that the first job you get is always based on like where you went to school, your resume, and your interview skills and whatnot. And then if it goes well in your career, every other job you will ever get in your life is going to be based on like your brand, your image, your work product, the mentors, the managers, and the friends you've made along the way. Because that's like what's happened to me. Honestly, out of the blue, I had somebody from Goldman reach out on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, we want to talk to you. We want to talk to you." And I was like, "Great. Like, where have you been for 10 years? I've been like waiting for you." But it was, I later found out that it was somebody who I had overlapped with at Aon, gave somebody at Goldman my name. And then that's how the connection was made.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I'm so glad that that person liked me enough to make that recommendation. But it was honestly at the time. So this was right around COVID. It was like July of 2020. So this was when the world was crashing, but I couldn't be happier because for me, it was like, honestly, it was like a validation that I had made it and all the work that I put in past 10, whatever been years, that it was enough to not only get like a call from Goldman, but actually go through the interview process and make it.
And I guess from like, how was that experience like in terms of actually finally getting the role and like working in it? What was the experience in terms of the team and all?
Yeah, I was there for 4 years and it was probably the most that I've learned in a concentrated period of time. So it was like everything I expected and then some. Like, so you're packed into a place with the most amazing, smart people, and you're working on really complex, difficult opportunities and tasks and problems. And it was great. It was like, honestly, it was everything that I could have hoped for. And then after 4 years, like, it was like, as I was thinking about where I had hit the ceiling in the team that I was in, I was starting to think about what do I want to do next. And lo and behold, literally somebody reached out to me again and was like, "Hey, do you want to talk?" And then, but yeah, I hope, and people who know me have heard me say this, I hope everyone gets the opportunity or the pleasure to work at Goldman at some stage in their careers, because it is a fascinating environment, tests you in various different ways, and honestly makes you a much more resilient, rounded professional. And you come out on the other side and you're like, look at everything that I've like learned and dealt with. And now it's all easy. Now the problems are so much easier to deal with.
Yeah. So I guess for professionals that are interested in getting into the insurance industry, like if for all the roles that you've been throughout your career, if you were to explain to them like what that would involve, like how would that explanation go?
Yeah. So
If
a lot
they're
of the
interested
times,
in this
yeah,
industry.
in our industry, it's either you're a doctor or an engineer or you're a loser. Those are the three categories in Pakistani culture. No, insurance has been so kind to me. And like a lot of the times when people think about insurance, they think about auto insurance, no life insurance, but there's this like segment called corporate insurance or property and casualty insurance where you can have a wonderful career. And now there's actually some schools that offer a risk management degree that you can actually go through school with this knowledge base and then come out and go into the world of this insurance that I'm part of. So basically the easiest way for me to describe it is that in my universe, there's insurance companies who provide this type of insurance. And these are some of the names that like a lot of people have heard of. Like obviously I'm at AIG, there's Chubb, there's Travelers, Hartford, and a bunch of others. Then you have an ecosystem called brokers in the middle. And that's Aon is a huge broker consultant firm. Marsh is another one, and a lot of others, as well as and some others. And then you have clients. And clients could be folks from any industry. It doesn't matter, insurance or not insurance, because clients are looking to buy insurance and clients buy insurance through brokers. So I started my career at a broker. And then I went and became a client, Goldman. So at Goldman, I was purchasing insurance on behalf of the firm from insurance companies. And then now I'm at an insurance company, AIG, getting my experience on this side. So there are three different sub industries within this universe. And you can come out of school and you can decide if you're interested, whether you want to start at an insurance company, whether you want to start in a brokerage consulting firm, or you want to be at a client working on the topic of corporate insurance. And I don't think you can go wrong and can see and go back and forth depending on how you're feeling about your career and experience.
Okay, how am I interested in this industry? Like, how did you reach that point where you're in insurance, you're progressing within it? Like, how was that process like in your decision making?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. I think a lot of people struggle with this. I have two young kids and my older is a daughter, and there's going to be a time where she's going to come to me and she's going to be like, I would love to do this in my career. And then we're going to have a conversation around what she loves to do versus what's actually going to be a good long-term career for her, right? Like at some point you have to decide, like, you go down the path of like, I want to love to do something which may not be a full-time career for the next 20, 30 years versus I may not like something so much, but if I get experience in it, it's going to turn into something great at the end. So I honestly like insurance was never my entrance around. Like never, I want to love insurance and this is what I want to do. But once I got into it and once I saw that there was a lot of potential and I was surrounded by people who were really positive and invested in my growth, then like, why would you leave? Like, why would you leave that atmosphere to go somewhere else, even though there might be a shiny object somewhere else that others are doing?
Yeah.
like my dad had his own business, right? I could have come back and done that, but it was just through the good days and the bad days, just knowing that you have building something is super important. And the last thing I'll say on this topic is you have to, regardless of whichever industry you're in, within that industry, find a niche and own it, become the subject matter expert in that niche, because you got to have something that distinguishes you versus in the world of, in my universe, when I was at Aon, they took a small sub industry and I was just invested in it. I learned everything about it. Like it was the hedge fund industry. I was just like, I would read up on hedge funds. I would learn about them, exactly what's happening with them. And that just became like my brand. If you need anything on hedge funds, talk to Ammad. You got to own a niche and become the SME, the subject matter expert, because that is what will really carry you for a long, long, long time, honestly.
Awesome. No, that is great advice. Yeah. Like being able to filter into a niche and then build from there will definitely stand out in terms of this career, long-term longevity of the career.
Yeah.
So I'm going to shift to one of the harder questions, I think. Actually, no, I guess it depends. But if you were to go back in time, knowing the experience, all the experience you have right now, from the first time you started your career, what would be the advice you would give yourself?
Be more humble. It's actually an easy question.
Okay.
Because I've thought about this. Like especially during my time at Aon, I didn't make a lot of friends, like deep friends in the industry. Like I really good relationships with colleagues, really good sort of interactions with a lot of people, but I was like so hyper competitive and so hyper focused that I viewed people as like competition. Like everything was a competition. And it wasn't until I got to Goldman, when you're surrounded with amazing individuals and stars, that you're like you learn to be humble a little bit. It wasn't until then that I realized that I had been taking it way too hard and way too seriously. So if I had to go back, I would probably say, be a little bit more humble, be a little bit more interested and like have a little bit more like emotional intelligence around certain topics and not be like this hard charging bull that's like driving through walls, which I was at times.
Got you. And I guess we're reaching the tail end here, but like, how do you define success?
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
For people who are hyper motivated and want to be challenged and always are striving for the next goal and next opportunity, it's hard for them to be content with where they are. Like it's hard for me to sit and be like, this is cool. Like I've done what I needed to do. I think success for me is at some point seeing my kids be successful in whatever they're doing. Because to me, I think that'll be the culmination of my life, that I was able to not just be successful myself, but invest enough time and effort and energy in them that they are able to stand on their 2 feet and take on the world on their own. And so that's what I'm still fighting for and pushing towards. That is the motivation is.
Got you. And in terms of your professional and personal, is there any like key traits, Pakistani traits, that you take and hold on to as you progress in your career or personal life?
Yes, just folks who come from the Asian culture, and this is not just South Asia, like India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, but also like other countries. Like we have this, I think it's ingrained in us when you're born in that country, that like your interaction with your supervisor and your manager is very different versus maybe some of what you're accustomed to here in the States. I remember early on that whatever my manager said and whatever my supervisor said, it was like, I'm going to do it. And that did help me. I think that kind of helped me early on in my career, that I wasn't like, no, wait a minute, I don't think we should do it that way. We should do it a different way. That instead of saying that, I was always like, got it, we'll do it. And I did it immediately. And most of the time I did it the right way. So I think that trait helped me. I don't know how much it's going to help people these days when they're working in their careers now. But for me, it was like, I think my managers appreciated that. Like they could tell me something and I would like, yes, got it. Who had it handled. That and the other trait is we are just very hard workers, honestly. I think first generation immigrants who come over, we have this like chip on our shoulder. Like you want to prove, like you belong, like you're here for a reason and you're chasing the American dream. And it's like a beautiful thing. My kids are not going to have it, but that's a beautiful trait for people who will come over.
Awesome. No, like you went through so much about your experience, and thank you so much for taking the time today to just go through all that. And it's a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Likewise, my pleasure is all mine. And I hope the people who watch and listen, it helps them in their careers.